It's 9 a.m. in Bulgaria on the A1 highway, more commonly known as the Trakia. A road renowned for its poor maintenance work and countless defects. A serious accident has just taken place. This 15-metre-long truck has swerved out of control. Hurtling along at over 100 kilometres an hour, the driver was unable to control his truck. He crashed into this ditch. The breakdown recovery team at the scene are on a war footing. They have to recover what was once a 32-ton truck, now just wreckage. The driver has been extremely lucky. He's managed to get out of the vehicle unscathed, but has had the fright of his life. All this to avoid being hit by a car.
Ne oldu? Geldim, bir bayan birisi frene bastı önümde. Ben frene bastım, araba beni aldı bıraktı. Yani kadın önümde durmasa bir şey yok. Kadın bir frene bastı, ben kadına vurmamak için frene bastım, araba beni getirdi.
He is an experienced driver who regularly travels on the Trakia.
Burada Türkiye, İngiltere, Türkiye, İngiltere. Standart.
Truck drivers are the main users of the Trakia and therefore the most at risk. As the final juncture before reaching Turkey, this highway is a vital network for import-export, and this has taken its toll. Not a month goes by without a truck accident hitting the Bulgarian headlines. Following a head-on collision, these trucks caught fire. Here, the driver fell asleep at the wheel and lost control of his vehicle. With their speeding and irresponsible overtaking, truckers here are notorious for dangerous driving. Like this truck, driving straight into motorists. Or this one, which skidded and caused a huge collision, resulting in 3 deaths. In this accident, 15 heavy trucks violently collided. Trucks have become ruthless killing machines on these Bulgarian highways. Fortunately, today's accident has no fatalities, but the roadside assistance team has a daunting task ahead. For over an hour, breakdown mechanics will attempt to tow the truck out of this ditch. They must also repair the damage. These truck collisions are becoming increasingly frustrating for these men. The majority of Bulgarian truck accidents are caused by drivers refusing to take mandatory rest breaks. The Trakia is renowned for being one of Europe's most accident-prone roads. With around 6.9 million inhabitants, Bulgaria is known as the poorest country in the European Union, but also as the country with the highest number of road fatalities. Thousands of road deaths are recorded every year. One of the most feared roads is the Trakia. 360 kilometres long, this highway spans the country and connects major cities like the capital Sofia, the city of Plovdiv and the city of Burgas on the Black Sea coast. The traffic is heavy with almost 100,000 cars a day. As a result, accidents occur every day.
Ако ми за първи път видя някой разкъсан, нормално е. Първото ми происшествие, отидах.
All because of a very poorly maintained road. With its damaged asphalt and multiple potholes, driving here is a constant risk.
You can see this Ето виждаме една много голяма дупка, но тя не е нещо необичайно, има далеч по-големи. Карат по средата на пътя, защото в лявата и в дясната половина има дупки. Те на практика карат на зигзаг. Вие можете да видите.
The other problem is the erratic behaviour of Bulgarian drivers. In short, their careless overtaking, driving under the influence.
Е употребил алкохол дори в малки количества.
Малко една чашавина.
But also they're speeding, despite the limits in place.
В случая за деня най-високата измерена скорост е 190 км в час.
Given the circumstances, some Bulgarians are scared to death of driving.
Аз се чувствам като игра на руска рулетка. Ние не знаем в момента кой ще е следващия.
In 2019, a pile-up shocked the nation. The driver lost control of his truck and wiped out 4 cars. 7 people lost their lives, leaving their families inconsolable.
Смачкана като кутийка, бира, кока-кола или каквото.
In 2021, one of the deadliest accidents in Europe occurred in Bulgaria, with 44 people killed in a coach that caught fire on the highway. Faced with this sad state of affairs, some people are fighting to save lives. For the last several months, we've been following the work of firefighters specialised in road accidents. But also the journalists and former police officers who are waging a battle against one of the main causes of these accidents, corruption. Between dubious practices, reckless driving and thrill seekers, this is an investigation into one of Europe's most dangerous roads. We're in Plovdiv, 140 kilometres from the capital. As the second largest city in Bulgaria, it's known to be the busiest part of the Trakia motorway and, above all, the most prone to car accidents. In 2020, the region recorded more than 1,000 injuries and 85 fatalities on its roads. Bad weather is one of the main culprits. Surrounded by mountains, Plovdiv has a very unpredictable climate. With at least 10 days of rain per month, the collisions and weather go hand in hand. Like this taxi driving at full speed in slippery conditions. Or this car that couldn't brake in time. This driver completely loses control of his truck. Marko, a breakdown mechanic, dreads these weather conditions every time he gets behind the wheel. It's 8 a.m. and there's just been an accident due to the rain. This car skidded and ended up in the guardrail.
Чакай, Веско. Чакай, че трябва двете ръце да работят.
Marko needs to remove it from the highway as quickly as possible
Няма да мога да бръкнем отдолу.
in order to avoid a multiple collision.
Върти ли се?
Ключа вътре не е ключа.
Ключа там ли е? Супер, Веско!
The wet road conditions pose a permanent risk.
Аквапланинг се получава и колите се удрят в несъобразената скорост, се удрят в мантинелата. Сами виждате, че опасно, не е никак лесно и добро състоянието на колата. Но за слава Богу няма пострадали пътници, това е най-важно.
This couple have been lucky, but everyone knows that an accident like this is bound to happen again. In Bulgaria, the maximum speed on the highway is not reduced when it rains. Motorists don't take extra care despite the obvious risks. An aberration from which some have benefited. Just several metres from the Trakia, this roadside assistance company has become one of the most notable in the region. The emergency services call upon its 25 employees as soon as an accident takes place on the highway. And to deal with all these breakdowns, the boss, Lubomir, has geared up with around 50 trucks. The most impressive is this one.
Това е един от най-така могъщите и сериозни автомобили. Разполага с кран, две хидравлични лебедки, има 50 тонни. Няма нещо, с което да не може да се справи.
The boss knows that on rainy days, business will boom. 10 vehicles towed each day, 3 times more than usual. Powerful cars that get trapped by the pitiful state of the roads, inevitably resulting in aquaplaning.
Това са коли тук от последните 10 дни от автомагистрала Тракия. Катастрофи, всичките автомобили, които са тук, има пострадали. Това БМВ от преди 10 дни, пак на автомагистрала Тракия на 46 км. Превишена скорост, водата го дига и от едното пътно минава в другото пътно.
The rain is a scourge in Bulgaria. Besides the lack of regulation, it also causes problems with the Trakia's construction.
Канали всичко е запушено, няма никакво течение като завали на водата от платното и цялата вода минава през пътното платно и се получава делта планинг. Високата скорост и водата, която минава през пътното платно, автомобил се подига и става на проблем. И това са последствията.
There is an example of this today. Bobby, one of Lubomir's employees, has been called out on an emergency.
Отиваме на автомагистрала Тракия, на 44 км има ПТП.
It's a surreal scene. This car has skidded off the road due to aquaplaning, shattered windows and a battered exterior. The vehicle rolled over several times.
Само гледайте надолу да не се завърти друг, че е много опасно да не ни удари.
The 3 passengers are already at the hospital and are in critical condition. For Bobby and a road maintenance worker, one thing remains a mystery: how to recover this wreckage from the ditch.
Тук долу няма минаване, освен ако е неотрежен. Никак не мога да...
Никак не става.
Даже за пецне и край.
It will take more than an hour for the recovery crew to pull the car out. The rain is wreaking havoc in Bulgaria. It was even the culprit behind one of the deadliest accidents in Europe. On the 23rd of November 2021, a horrendous tragedy occurred on the road from Bosnek, 40 kilometres away from the capital city, Sofia. 44 people were burnt to death in a car accident. According to the initial findings of the investigation, the driver lost control of the vehicle due to wet road conditions and then violently crashed into the guardrail. He died instantly. A fire broke out at the front of the vehicle, preventing the passengers from escaping. The Bulgarian Minister of the Interior arrived at the scene in shock.
Такова нещо аз не съм виждал до сега. Тук говорихме и с колегата Сарафов. Хората са скупчени, хората са на въглен.
Only 7 people sitting at the back of the bus managed to get out. They were traumatized.
Бял автобуси, дрейт паркинг, аз nuk më isha në zonë me qit, asem, edhe veç jam shoj bankime për një herë krisi, shumë një kris në nolle.
Edhe kom pas njeri përveç mu, edhe kjo thërke një, edhe zdi që shumë dalë jashtë, se kom paqëm, as krye kom qamë.
Most of the victims were aged between 20 and 30 years old. 12 of them were minors. It was a tragedy that made headlines across the world. Yet another addition to Bulgaria's annual toll of more than 600 road deaths. But this particular accident shook the nation. In the Plovdiv region, speeding is the leading cause of deaths on the road. In this video, a careless driver weaves through the cars at full throttle, narrowly avoiding a collision. But sometimes others aren't so lucky. Hurtling along at 180 kilometres an hour, this car loses control. collides with two vehicles and causes an accident that could have been fatal. In 2020, reckless drivers speeding over the limit caused more than 1,500 accidents on the Trakia. To put an end to these tragedies, Highway Patrol are ramping up inspections. Running the show is Zdravko, police officer for 5 years. He is waging all-out war against reckless drivers.
Тъй като дори и минимално нарушение да бъде извършено на закон за движение по пътища, могат да се настъпят тежки пътно-транспортни инциденти с ранени и загинали лица.
Today, the police officers are stationing themselves on this section of the Trakia from 9 a.m. until 9 p.m. It's a strategic position.
Местата, които се избират за контрол, са на базата на извършвания анализ на пътно-транспортната обстановка и най-вече на концентрацията на стъпване на ПТП. Основната роля на техническото средство все пак е превантивна, с оглед това да намалим пътно-транспортния травматизъм и
The equipment comes in the form of these mobile radars linked to their tablets.
имаме възможност в пряко включване да наблюдаваме самия трафик, като самата камера отчита всяка една измерена скорост. В случая за деня най-високата измерена скорост е 190 км в час, като максимално разрешена скорост за движение в участъците от магистралата, за което ще му бъде наложено съответното наказание.
In France, speeding 50 kilometers an hour over the limit results in 6 points being deducted from their license, a €1,500 fine, and most importantly, a 3-year driving ban. But in Bulgaria, traffic laws are much less severe.
За извършеното нарушение, тъй като е извън населено място, не се отнемат контролни точки, а единствено глобата е с парична сума.
It's hard to believe that speeding on the most lethal highway in Europe does not deduct points from your license. As a result,
към момента имаме 10 нарушители на превишената скорост, като най-високо отчетената скорост е 190 км.
in Bulgaria, it's practically impossible to lose your license. Here, a driver has 39 points. Not to mention that the Bulgarians do not pay their fines. Take, for instance, this driver.
7-8 секунди, поемете въздух, аз ще ви кажа кога да спрем.
A random breath test.
Още малко, достатъчно. Благодаря. 3-0.
Благодаря.
Алкохол няма.
This motorist, however, has a hefty sum to pay up.
Установихме, че има 7 нарушения за превишена скорост, след което връчихме електронни фишове за превишена скорост в различен размер. 50 лева, 50 лева, 400 лева.
In total, the man has accumulated nearly €700 worth of fines for going over the speed limit, but claims to have never received them. Unable to verify his version of events, the police officer gives him the benefit of the doubt.
Правилно взимате книжката, може ли да му вземете книжката? Как е?
Не, по закон. Вършваме глобите. Има 14-дневен срок да ги плати, да ги обжалва или да заяви, че друг е карал автомобила.
The driver can therefore continue freely on his way and will not be prosecuted if he doesn't pay his fines. In France, such a track record would get your license revoked instantly, but here, negligent drivers have no fear of fines or losing their license. Faced with this general leniency, Bulgarian city centres have become uncontrollable. In the middle of this concrete jungle, violent accidents are a common sight. While making a U-turn, this reckless driver hits a vehicle and drives it off the road. In Bulgaria, danger is present at every intersection. No one is safe, not even these ambulances that were hit at full force while out on a call. The fault lies with these drivers who mix alcohol with reckless driving. Here, the driver doesn't appear to have even noticed the roundabout. In 2019, more than 4,000 drunk drivers were recorded on Plovdiv's roads. So, to prevent these unsafe drivers from committing irreparable damage, the highway police are stepping up their vigilance. This morning, the team are carrying out breathalyzer tests on this section of the motorway, infamous for its frequent accidents. The limit is 0.50 grams of alcohol per litre of exhaled air.
Добър ден, господин инспектор Гръшка пътна полиция. Пловдив ще бъде извършена проба за наличие на алкохол. Съгласен ли сте? Поставяме междука от техническото средство. Повечето от пътно-транспортни происшествия с фатален край или с ранение и причинено от големи материални щети се дължат именно от това употреба на алкохол, наркотични вещества. Отрицателно. Този път имаме тръгнули, водач не е употребил алкохол, няма предишни нарушения.
That's if the driver complies with the law, which isn't always the case. It's not even 10 a.m. and for some, it's already time for an aperitif.
Не, чакай. 0,14. Стойността на алкохол, който е установен, е ненаказуем, за съжаление, но водача е употребил алкохол дори в малки количества.
Малко една чаша вино.
Стойността, която установихме на водача, е ненаказуема по българското законодателство. Техническото средство трябва да бъде над 0,50 пробва на 1000, за да може да бъде създаден съответно алан и да бъде отнето временно свидетелство за управление на МФС.
0.5 grams of alcohol per litre of exhaled air. In Bulgaria, you can drink up to 5 glasses of whiskey before testing positive. In Plovdiv, the police officers' breathalyzers are off the charts. The record, one motorist has been stopped with 3 grams 51, the equivalent of 7 litres of beer. And some take pride in their overindulgence. These two young women are recording themselves live on social media with beer bottles in their hand. Clearly drunk and speeding, the driver loses control. The two women were killed on the spot. The kind of high-risk behaviour that sends shivers down your spine. Though alcohol isn't always to blame. Not a day goes by in Bulgaria without a calamity occurring on the roads. One particular accident left the entire nation reeling. In 2019, the Trakia was the site of a terrible car crash. That day, 7 people lost their lives. The cause of this tragic event was this 40-ton truck loaded with cosmetics. The driver lost control of his truck, destroyed the guardrail and ended up in the opposite lane, wiping out 4 vehicles in the process. The driver was killed instantly, and he was not the only fatality. Ilyana can sadly vouch for this. That day, she lost 3 members of her family, her brother, sister-in-law, and great-niece, aged just 12.
Това е брат ми и снаха ми. Едно прекрасно дете. Това е племенника ми, който си остана в кръгъл сирак. Ами, напълват ми се пак очите със сълзи. 10 месеца.
Like everyone else, Ilyana found out about the accident via the evening news on television. But at the time, she would never have expected her own family to be in one of these cars.
Заглавие. 5 жертви и 6 ранени при брутална катастрофа на Тракия. Смачкана като кутийка, бира, кока-кола или каквото. Ето е тук, където е било детето на 2 години и половина. Където кабината на шофьора се е врязала в колата.
A professional investigation into the accident is yet to have been conducted. It's impossible to know whether the driver was at fault, but in Ilyana's opinion, he's not the only one responsible.
Не е проблема само в шофьора, това казвам. Да, сигурно нещо има, но и пътя е причина. Никой не може да каже. Нормално ли е това да става 2020 година в европейска държава?
Given the conditions of the road, it's not surprising that this section of the Trakia highway holds the record for the most accidents. Cracks, potholes and ineffective guardrails. Since its construction, the highway has never been properly maintained. As a result, truck drivers often lose control of their vehicles. Despite the facts, the Bulgarian government has never wanted to repair this road. A week before the tragic accident, the Prime Minister that was in office until 2021 was still insisting he would not do any work on the Trakia.
Вчера казаха, кой го строил, това ще го оставиме най-накрая. Най-накрая. 60 милиона не ми се дават сега.
Не ми се дават. Дай, ще го оставиме за най-накрая. Кой е той? Аз разбирам той да ги изтарава парите, но това са пари на българския данъкоплатец. Да, аз мисля, че моето семейство плати. Убедена съм. Плати за абсолютното безхаберие.
Roads in pitiful conditions, reckless drivers and an angry nation. These are the consequences of another well-known scourge of the country: corruption. In Bulgaria, 20% of the population lives below the poverty line, so all sorts of wheeler dealing is taking place. The Highway Police Unit is seemingly one of the country's most questionable institutions. This is a problem that Bogdan Milchev is well aware of. Police officer for over 20 years, this man has witnessed his fair share of shady practices.
Ето виждате сега в момента как нарушителя вади 20 лева и ги дава на полицая. Полицая ги свива в ръката. Виждате как ги свива в ръката и ги прибира в джоба. Това е, за съжаление, в България.
With an average salary of €800 a month, the Bulgarian police officers have got into the habit of supplementing their income. During roadside checks, the exchange of money between motorists and police officers has become a standard. As a consequence, dangerous drivers are rarely punished. In this video, the driver managed to film the officer without him knowing.
Цепил съм ти спиране от движение, разбирате за кой да реч. Благодаря много. Цел ти разкатая и като иди сега почерпиш. Две имена и подпис. Не знам, Колев, защото ще да го отнесе и ако почерпиш. Те са Колев изкалят. Изподол.
To get off, the young driver had to shell out €50.
И аз смело мога да кажа, че в България корупцията убива хората по пътищата.
In charge of the capital's Highway Police Unit for 4 years, Bogdan has tried his best to put an end to this system.
И разбира се, борихме много сериозно с корупцията, като имаме 17 човека дисциплинарно уволнени, на 11 от тях са повдигнати обвинения. Да се бориме срещу корупцията, нямаше как на улицата има над 250 полицаи и ние да сложиме на всеки един от тях контрола.
Despite being ousted from the police for giving a speeding ticket to the Minister of the Interior, Bogdan has not given up the fight. Since then, the former police officer has been trying to save lives at the head of his own organisation. His main target is the infamous Trakia highway that spans the country from east to west.
Е в изключително лошо състояние, постоянно е в кръпки, постоянно е в дупки, неравностите са навсякъде, дори в момента се усещат. Автомобила вибрира и минава през неравности, които са недопустими на една магистрала.
In this video, a motorist loses control of his car because of a pothole. It's the same situation for this truck that fatally hits another vehicle. At night, accidents are even more common. This car was crushed by a heavy truck following a flat tyre. According to Bogdan, the highway's dreadful road conditions led to the death of 150 people between 2016 and 2020.
Аз се чувствам като игра на руска рулетка. Ние не знаем в момента кой ще е следващия, който ще катастрофира и дали това няма да сме ние.
It took years of fighting and moreover hundreds of accidents for the Bulgarian government to agree to invest in renovation works. As far as Bogdan is concerned, the problem remains unsolved.
Да, това, което в момента ние констатираме е, че тези пукнатини на чисто ново път, който дори още не е пуснат в експлоатация, са се появили. Значи вижте, тези пукнатини в момента не са опасни. Тези пукнатини във времето ще направят така, че цялото платно. Видимо е едно, че се дават страшно много пари, милиони, милиарди за пътища, а те не са качествени.
These badly reconstructed roads have other repercussions. While the road was getting rebuilt, in order to allow drivers to continue their route, the Bulgarian government diverted all traffic to a trunk road that runs alongside the Trakia. However, this two-lane road with a 90 km/h speed limit is not made to accommodate the thousands of commuters, many of which are heavy trucks. Since then, the number of accidents has skyrocketed. While trying to avoid another vehicle, this truck swerves out of control due to driving at such high speeds. This car tried to overtake on a bend. The head-on collision with this bus was fatal. Tragedies that Dimitar Stoiano, a reporter for Bulgarian television, is all too familiar with. In his 15-year career, he's covered hundreds of accidents.
Щом е инцидент, няма как да е обичаен. Просто в България случването на необичайни неща, това, което видях, когато отидох на място с моят оператор, аз видях един автомобил Mazda с 6 или 7 трупа вътре. И то съвсем млади хора. Хора в порядъка 18-23 години. И второто много важно нещо, когато пътувате, можете да видите, че пътищата в България приличат на гробище. Имаме десетки, може би стотици надгробни плочи вследствие на инциденти.
It's no secret that these roads are among the most dangerous in Europe. Hundreds of headstones line the roadsides to honour the memory of road traffic victims. Some families have even built memorials. According to Dimitar, the condition of this small highway is at the root of these tragedies.
You can see this. Ето виждаме една много голяма дупка, но тя не е нещо необичайно, има далече по-големи. It's something like a big canyon. And go back.
Despite the road's terrible condition, motorists aren't afraid to put their foot on the pedal. Bulgarian people seem to have their own particular method of avoiding accidents.
Хората се опитват да избягнат дупките, които се намират в двете платна. И за това карат по средата на пътя, защото в лявата и в дясната половина има дупки. Те на практика карат на зигзаг. Вие можете да видите. Всъщност избираме лентата, която дава по-малка вероятност за катастрофа.
On this two-lane road, slaloming between potholes can be deadly. One night, a car entered the left lane at full speed and hit another traveller head-on. The outcome? 2 dead and 1 seriously injured. The Bulgarian government promised to fix the roads with the 2.5 million euros given to them by the European Union. However, so far there's been no sign of reconstruction nor any explanation as to why, despite the journalists' relentless pursuit of those responsible for Bulgarian highways. According to Dimitar, a €1 million subsidy has disappeared.
Никой не иска да положи усилия за този път. Всъщност се планират ремонти с европейски пари. Ние подозираме, че ремонтът се бави, за да се избере правилната фирма, през която голяма част от тези пари да бъдат откраднати.
A difficult suspicion to prove in one of the most corrupt countries in the European Union, which has also been going through a political crisis since the 90s. But the government's apathy benefits certain businessmen. In Bulgaria, some are thriving, despite competition from larger roadside assistance companies. Stefan set up his small business 10 years ago.
Здравейте, момчета! Здравейте! Как сме?
Only 5 employees, but business is flourishing. Their secret to success? Work on all the small roads in Bulgaria where the other companies don't go. They carry out hundreds of jobs each month. Bulgarians have a rather unique interpretation of traffic laws. For no reason, motorists take unnecessary risks. Some assignments have been devastating for these breakdown mechanics.
Всяко ми за първи път видя някой разкъсан. Нормално е.
Първото ми происшествие, отидах, имаше 4 човека убити. Още като работех при чорбаджиите, като почвах работа, вечерта изпих едно шело уиски. Защото ми се системите ми се размърдаха и на мен тогава.
On a day-to-day basis, he handles smaller accidents, just like this vehicle here.
Мисъл, някой е откраднал някой непълнолетен, ми се струва. Който не може да кара. Който не може да кара. Защото е глупав удара. И е бил пиян.
The car ended up in this well. Luckily, no one was hurt.
Парчиците. Остатъците от автомобила. Готови сме.
Minor issues, but major work for Stefan. When it's not drunk drivers spinning off the road, then it's the notorious potholes that cause damage. Every day, dozens of vehicles become stranded.
Дай да я качиш на ход. Само сега ще кажа. Проблема е от пътя.
While driving, the driver of this car had a nasty shock. Racing along at more than 100 kilometers an hour, he heard his tire explode.
Заради пътя има дупка на пътя и се спука, гърми гумата.
Today, the owner of the vehicle has been very lucky. Flat tires are often the cause of tragic accidents. Back at his garage, Stefan is looking at a job his employee has brought in. The driver has lost control of his vehicle after driving over a huge crack in the road.
Тази кола катастрофира в Стара Загора, вътре в града. Завърта, заиграва го и изгубва управление шофьора и така. Много е мощна, 600 коне.
Къде се вляза?
В мантинелите. По средата на двете платна, между двете платна.
Често ли се случват такива инциденти тук?
Не е много често, нали видя 3-4 дена.
The company's chief keeps all the vehicles he's towed in his garage. In this minivan, 7 people were killed. In this car, a young couple and a newborn were found dead at the scene following a head-on collision. And in the midst of the wreckage, the man keeps one of his most terrifying assignments. This 35-ton truck, now infamous in Bulgaria. This truck flipped over on the Trakia and took the lives of 7 people, including Ilyana's brother. The driver of the truck was crushed in his cabin and died on the spot. Called for backup, Stefan and his employees took 4 hours to haul this truck away.
Чувството е смисъл, гадно си смисъл, че има убити хора, но като работа, смисъл ми хареса тази работа и така.
Stefan's calling is to be a breakdown mechanic. It seems his business has a bright future ahead as another trend continues to wreak havoc. In Plovdiv, at the Highway Police Headquarters, Viktor Prazov is assembling his men for a clampdown. He has a very common practice in his sights.
Тази вечер ще се проведе специализирана полицейска операция във връзка с водачи, които дрифтат в град Пловдив и около град Пловдив. За целта
For over 10 years, the Bulgarian youth have taken over the streets of the city centre and turned Plovdiv into an open-air racetrack, a dangerous activity that is gaining more and more enthusiasts, all of whom could face a fine, a 3-month driving suspension and their car being confiscated. So tonight, the superintendent has called in special forces for backup, these men in black.
Добре, въпроси? Няма. Добре. Товарим се направо и слизаме надолу. Айде.
They head out to the city's ring roads.
Да се насочи на Асено-Радско шосе, да патрулира връзка с гонките. Този квартал е известен с големите и просторни булеварди изпробват колко са мощни автомобилите, което по някой път води до фатален край и им коства здравето и живота.
Every year in Plovdiv, 80 accidents are caused by these illegal gatherings. On this occasion, a vehicle speeding at over 160 kilometers an hour ended up crashing into this electric pole. It resulted in 3 deaths, including the driver. To prevent fatalities like these, Victor and his team monitor every inch of the town.
Хранителен магазин има много голям паркинг, на който се събират също големи групи млади хора и си показват автомобилите.
The superintendent knows their routine like the back of his hand.
Давай, има. Дай. Не, давайте направо тук и ще ги затиснем от двете страни. Дайте тук. 228, всичките коли искам да се запишат. Всички до една. И хората също.
A suspicious gathering is taking place at this supermarket parking lot. There are 20 or so young people hanging around their vehicles.
Добър вечер, да си приготвите документите, всичките ще... Добър вечер. Документите си пригответе на автомобила и вашите лични карти.
Според.
На колегите ги давайте.
The police's trick is to check to see if the cars have been tampered with for racing.
Да, нека да дигнем, кажи, капака. И това момче или на кой, нека се дигне капака да видим. Дайте газ хубаво, госпожо. Моля?
The engine noise is an important clue.
Колата издава звук, който не е нормален за нормален автомобил. Колегите ще спрат автомобила от движение и в утрешния ден колата трябва да се представи в пътна полиция за проверка на шумозаглушителното устройство. Визирам... Дай газ! Дай газ хубаво! Дай бе, човек! Дай газ!
The noise indicates that the engine has been modified to be more powerful.
Дай газ хубаво, газ дай! Хубаво!
Добре!
Как го правиш на кръстовища? Дай хубаво, ще точно.
It's illegal.
Дигни капака пред нея. Не, да дойде да дигни капак. Дигнете. Те тръби какво си пригаждал нещо?
Кажете, слушам.
Нещо е правилно тук това?
Това е изменение на конструкцията. Това не е заводско изпълнение. С кое? С нитро ли?
И с него ли си?
С кое? Слушам та.
За охлаждане. Добре, ми затваряй, колега, и си взимай отношение. Другите, който е проверен...
Mission accomplished for the police officers. That evening, only 5 of the 10 vehicles examined were in legal order.
Говорят си и това в един даден момент може да излезат на булеварда и да почнат да се дърпат.
And although this time the young people were not caught in the act, their festivities have been cut short by these inspections. They incur a €70 fine for racing, but most importantly, a 3-month driving ban and a requirement to bring their cars back to normal. These penalties are not enough. The city of Plovdiv has become the illegal racing capital of Bulgaria. Young enthusiasts are avoiding media attention at all costs. However, we were able to exclusively meet one of its oldest members. Meet Georgi.
Това е нещо друго, което читам.
For 2 years, this young Bulgarian businessman has spent every weekend with his latest toy, this 367 horsepower German race car with a modified engine.
Практика с този двигател по спецификация на производителя и технически данни може да развие над 300 км в час. Подменихме гумите. Минахме на такива, които са спортни, но все пак легални за пътя. Подменихме спирачките, като отпред минахме на 6 бутални огромни апарати.
The height of fashion with special headlights installed for €350.
И тази модификация реално я направих специално за моя син, защото той беше на 2 години и половина и трябваше по някакъв начин да го науча как се наричат цветовете.
In Plovdiv, it's about standing out. Altogether, he's spent over 20,000 euros in the space of a year, a small fortune in a country where the minimum wage is the equivalent of 342 euros a month. It's not clear where this money has come from, but according to Georgi, it's his savings.
Хора обичат да ходят на почивки и да имат снимки оттам. Има хора като мене, които обичат да влагат парите си в автомобили. Всъщност тази кола е като част от нашето семейство. Тази кола е любов. Отиваме в семейната кола. Това е колата за всеки ден.
This unrivaled champion knows the roads like the back of his hand. For years, he and his friends made the city streets their playground. They race for small bets, but mainly for the adrenaline rush.
Това, което правихме, излизахме ето така от тук. След което спирахме тук в дясно, имаше отбивка. Виждате ли? Ето е отбивката. Ето го знак. През това време момчето, което трябваше да даде старт, идваше в средата на пътя. Заставахме ето така, давахме 3, 2, 1. 60.
On this busy road, right in the middle of other commuters, there's just 400 meters to the finish line. And to achieve victory, the illegal racers aren't afraid to break every law, including driving at speeds up to 200 kilometers an hour on this road, limited to 60. So far, Georgi has never been arrested, but his friends have not been so lucky. The family man has decided to stop participating in illegal races due to the dangers involved.
Преди 8 години, когато бях на 22 години, бях ерген. Всеки един момент, дори на 30 години, аз съм готов да се състезавам с друга кола. Но вече осъзнавам, че тук, където случваха тези неща, нито е времето, нито е мястото, защото може да пострадат хора.
A wise decision, but Georgi knows that the younger generation have taken over. On this road alone, illegal racers are responsible for around 20 accidents each year. Reckless behaviour that worries the authorities. In Plovdiv, there is a station dedicated entirely to road accidents. In the north of the city, 20 firefighters are on standby 24 hours a day. There are mandatory training sessions once a month. Inside this overturned car, the firefighters must rescue a crash test dummy. They only have a few minutes to get him out, but there is a problem.
Заключи се колата да му отковаш. Така можете да щупите задния прозорец, после да се щупите семака на багажника.
The only way to free the injured person is with this hydraulic shear.
Добре, сега почвате малко по малко от тази страна и си говорите.
Някой трябва да стане или тук или там да казва от която.
Добре, давайте, почваме да режем.
In less than 2 minutes, the passenger compartment is completely cut open.
Вите, помоги на Ген колко трябва нещо с крана. Тук на Мит колко трябва да му помага с тези неща.
To prevent the framework from crushing the injured person, the firefighters used the crane built into their truck. They can now safely rescue the victim.
Леко, леко, леко, леко, леко. Секунда, леко, ляво, дясно, добре. Чакай малко, бавно.
The Plovdiv Fire Brigade have fine-tuned this drill to perfection and take it very seriously. On call for all types of accidents in the region, the firefighters know they must deal with any type of situation. During an emergency, every second counts. For victims of internal bleeding and other localized injuries in Plovdiv, the seriously injured often die before arriving at hospital.
On Trakia, specifically on the Trakia, there is a very big road, very heavy traffic on the highway. So we've got car crashes almost, I don't know, maybe every day, maybe 1, 2, 3 per day.
The evidence continues today. A serious accident has just taken place on a small road in the suburbs of the city. Arriving at the scene, the firefighters were greeted by something out of a horror movie.
Шофьора на автомобила явно го не е видял, тъй като метеорологичните условия са били лоши, валяло е дъжд в тъмната част на денонощието.
Hurtling along at more than 120 kilometers an hour on a road limited to 90, the driver hit a pedestrian. The victim, who was killed instantly, was trapped in the windshield. The sheer dents on the car body alongside the traces of blood on the road show the force of the impact.
Почиствали се уредите и в 8 часа свършваме дежурство.
But now there is the risk of fire. The firefighters must urgently disconnect the battery. The slightest spark could cause this gas-powered car to explode. The driver has been taken to hospital in a state of shock. Tragic events like these have become all too common on the roads of Plovdiv. In the city, being a pedestrian isn't easy. Due to thoughtless drivers that run red lights and drive at full speed. This surveillance tape shows 2 Bulgarians narrowly escaping death. The same thing happens at pedestrian crossings. Here, a mother and her child are hit. It's the same situation here, but with a bus that knocks over a woman and her baby. The infant, by some miracle, escaped unharmed. The mother, meanwhile, remained in hospital for a few days after sustaining numerous head injuries. Every year, more than 1,300 pedestrians in Bulgaria fall victim to hit-and-run drivers. In Plovdiv alone, in less than a year, 165 pedestrians were injured and 13 were killed. The majority of the victims are young people under the age of 14. So, to prevent such tragedies, road safety awareness has become an important campaign. The highway police themselves are taking charge of it.
Добър ден! Вие помните ли?
Today, Superintendent Girganov is at a school in the north of the city speaking to some 10-year-old children.
Пак ще си припомним важните неща, свързани най-вече с безопасността на движението. Защото тези неща, които се случват навън на улицата, за да се случат, има някаква причина. Те моля да пресечеш улицата. Аха, нещо направи с главичката, видяхте ли, деца? Ама той се огледа. Хайде сега да ви припомня аз. Колко пъти трябва да се оглеждаме? Един път?
Не.
Колко? 2 пъти?
Не.
3 пъти? Да, 3 пъти. 3. Защото тук играят децата на улицата. В няколко от случаите те сами казаха, че стремежът ми беше да се опитам да ги извадя от тази инерция.
These school children may seem particularly attentive.
Добре, а този знак тук с тези хубавите дечица какво означава?
Този знак означава децата да не играят на улица, защото може да ги блъсне някоя кола.
And it's because they suffered a tragedy that left them traumatized.
Моя приятелка доста близка и се е случвала катастрофа. Защото аз се оглеждам и опитвам се да спазвам всичко, за да не
ходим по тротуара, защото ако не ходим по тротуара, може да ни изгази някоя кола, да ни блъсне. Затова винаги се ходи за тротуара.
Христо, заповядай.
Благодаря много.
Заповядай. Това са символични шофьорски книжки. Тази книжка представлява да ги стимулираме, да продължат поведението им да бъде безопасно.
Bulgaria is looking to the new generation to help rid itself of its title as the European country with the most accidents. By educating themselves on the dangers of the road, here's to hoping that the drivers of tomorrow may be more cautious.